Oppan Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Oppan Gangnam Style. Sexy lady.
Welcome to Bound for Glory, the only AFL show on SYN. We got a big instalment this week. We got a segment on Geelong and North Melbourne reviewing their season. We got our Brownlow preview, should be a good segment, and we've got our tribute to John McCarthy as well as a review from last night. But first, we'll introduce the panel. I'm Ethan Meldrum.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Ben.
And I am Matt.
And I'm Damon.
It was an interesting game last night. It was finals fever. Not a lot of people showed up. I'm sure that they
31,000.
they decided that they had
Home
better
final
things to
in
do.
Adelaide. Yeah, obviously.
Were they bandwagoning? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, why not?
What I heard
Maybe-
last night after the game was apparently that Adelaide supporters don't want to fork out the money to go and watch a final. That's what I actually heard.
I heard many different excuses as to why the crowd was so. I heard.
Well, the game started at 8:15.
Oh,
that
no,
was
a
a
whole
joke.
30 minutes
Shocking.
later. Oh, let's not bother go because it's 30 minutes later.
Yeah, but
That's a pretty-
you also got to take into account that finals tickets are expensive.
They are.
Can we not, let's not dance around this. They're too expensive.
Yeah, we've got to consider.
And then they go up
poor
again.
Adelaide people are.
It goes up again next week, and then it goes up again on
And
grand
then
final.
next year they're going to travel to New Zealand to watch a game. So that'll be good, paying for a flight up to New Zealand.
Adelaide?
No, I'm talking about St Kilda, the St Kilda game next year. And on Anzac Day.
What does it have to do with Adelaide?
No, I'm saying, but you're going to have to fork out more money.
Fork
Fans
out
have to
more
fork
money.
out more money.
Oh, well,
You don't just hop in a canoe and go to New Zealand.
You can try. You can try if you
Well,
want.
you could, but you wouldn't make it.
Now I'm just imagining the Saints players in like one of those four, like the Olympic style 4 people things, 4 to a boat, rowing across. This
Stephen
got off
Mi-
track really fast. What
Stephen
are we-
Milne on the front just going, row,
Yeah.
row.
Lift white.
Okay, there was a final last night. I think we should discuss that. 2 distinctive styles. Adelaide, they don't really focus on defensive pressure. They like to spread and carry the ball, use their kicking skills, whereas Fremantle like to play that Ross line clamp. The Crows, once they started switching the ball, they went wide, they won.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. Fremantle had the ball, and this is an odd stat for what happened. 53% of the time it was in their half of the ground. And that's what Fremantle throws down the gauntlet to opposition teams. They say, we've got our press, we've got our flood, if you will. The challenge is up to you to go coast to coast through that. And the first half, they struggled, Adelaide.
Off the top of my head, they were up by 33 points, Freo, I believe. I think it was
a 5-goal
30
lead.
plus. Yeah. So if they were so good for, I think it was about a quarter and a half, and then the lead at halftime got dragged back to something small, or relatively small in comparison. How did they give up a 30-point lead? I mean, they looked magical. They absolutely flogged Geelong last week, which nobody really expected.
It's that pressure style. It really saps it out of you. And considering last week that they did it again last night in both the first and second quarters, they flew out of the blocks. And basically, when Fremantle go to get the ball off the opposition, one person goes up, and then it's the next person that's in the closest proximity to that contest runs to pick up the ball when it hits the deck. So you've got one coming over the top and one running. There's always one person who comes towards the ball carrier, and that obviously leaves Fremantle open to the handball over the top, but they make sure that they've got everyone covered. They couldn't get to that next contest. They ran out of gas.
After last night, I'm convinced that Fremantle's midfield is extremely underrated. The obviously the tagging work we've heard a lot about from Ryan Crowley is fantastic, but when you've got Sandilands up and about and he's hitting down to the likes of Nat Fyfe when he's up and going, Michael Barlow was fantastic.
And David Mundy as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say Mundy. Just jumped the gun. He was. I think he had something like 16 or 17 first half disposals, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but in comparison to the the other players on the field. He
Well,
was just a class
He
above.
had 10 clearances,
Yeah.
which was just fantastic.
At half time, here, I've actually got it in front of me, 17 touches,
I
9...
just guessed that, so I'm
No,
pretty...
he was spot on. 17 touches, 9 of them contested, 5 clearances and 5 inside 50s. In a finals-type game where that sort of everyone's around the ball, that's immense.
And
That
away
is-
from home as well.
Away from home. And that always played against Fremantle last night. As much as Ross Lyon during the week played up anywhere, anytime, any place, it will get to you. Snatch and grab jobs where you fly in, you get the win and fly out. It doesn't happen often in finals.
But they didn't get the job done. We've got to remember that. And Adelaide were very good in the second half. Taylor Walker was a class above. Alex Silvani was just diced up completely. He looked like he was. That was a show and maker's performance. That was.
There wasn't much you could do about that, though, because Zach Dawson and Alex Silvani, I mean, they're no top defenders. Luke McFarlane out really did hurt them in the end, because, I mean, I saw people calling out for Silvani to be moved off Walker. That means he plays in Kurt Tibbett, who has about 20 centimetres and 10 kilos on him, so it's just not a move that could be done. Really, they got exposed last night in the back line.
They did, and I think Pavlich, was he injured or was he just out of the game? Because there's
He's got
that.
shut down.
He was just towed.
Smashed.
He was towed. Rutten, he not only played
He was
well,
bulldozed.
checked man on man. It was also he set up a lot of those rebounds towards the end of the third quarter. And I think the turning point was when Stephen Hill missed those 2 shots.
You got to remember last week the Adelaide game versus Sydney. Sydney only kicked 77 points. It's not as though the Adelaide defence was rubbish as well. So they did a great job.
They have a solid back six. Luke Thompson came in. Is it Luke?
Luke,
Yeah, Luke. He came in, did a solid job. Brody Smith off the halfback flank
He
was
was
one of
fantastic.
Adelaide's best. For a bloke who's only 20 years old, he just came in, composed himself, used the ball well. He didn't turn it over, and it's something that a lot of Adelaide players did early on, and he adapted to the pressure and he kept it going for 4 quarters.
Well, Ricky Henderson played well last night as well, coming in. Brett Riley, I thought, stepped up in the second half
They
as
had
well.
all those flanker, winger sort of players all had those big games, and that's how they won the game. Because
did.
the clearances didn't really slow down for Fremantle. It was just the rebound work was much better. I think you have marked here that there were 9 more turnovers for Adelaide at half time, and that changed significantly in the second half.
It did because they went wider. They were, I don't know, because they tried being patient, but they were over patient in the first half, trying to break down the Dockers' defence. They sort of waited too long. Then in the second half, they changed it up, and as soon as someone dropped in 20 metres closer, they'd chip it over the top, and then they'd reset, and then they quickly, within 5 seconds, went, okay, who's next? And they kept going down the line and wider, and it eventually worked. There was a goal that was kicked where it went long down the line to Tippett, who was pushed right on the face of the 50 arc and the boundary, and then he went inboard and he found Walker, and I think they kept going wide, and that's the essential way to beat Fremantle. You win it in close, you win the contest, and then you get it out wide, and they've got no plan B at the moment.
And with all that said, it was a great comeback, obviously, but if they bring that sort of performance against Hawthorn, they will get absolutely smashed. They'll have to come back from 50 points down rather than 30 points.
Their game plan makeup doesn't allow them to beat Hawthorn. You need to put pressure on their halfbacks, and the fact that Adelaide's game, the first-year coach, they're going to have to work on that defensive pressure aspect, and you can't beat Hawthorn if you have a lack of defensive pressure and a lack of accountability off half.
Do you think they'll miss Talia next week?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because they've got
Franklin Rufford
the tall forwards,
Hale.
Gunston.
Yeah, Hale, Gunston.
It's going to be so difficult.
Who's the other
Got too many
one?
tools.
The other one, Bruce.
Yeah, and even Hawthorn can play that Adelaide style of looking to find space and wide with those chips. They're probably more patient than Adelaide because they back themselves with confidence because they're that good at kick that they can say, okay, I can wait. I know I'm going to hit the target from 20 metres away.
And they played earlier in the year. I think it was round 3 or 4 or something. Very early. It was something like 60
It was 10
points.
goals. They should have won by more.
Yeah, they were up by more, and it was just a...
It was a very poor performance by the Adelaide that day. I doubt they're going to bring the same, but they're just going to be too good in the end. Adelaide will throw everything they have, but it just won't be enough.
And did last night show that Walker's more important than Tippett, do you think? So if Tippett leaves,
yeah.
which we all think
Definitely.
you will, it's not really going to leave a massive hole
I
in
think
their
it'll
lineup.
somewhat benefit, maybe, in a way. I mean, Callanan, he was rubbish last night, but his last month or 2 months have been fantastic and just out of this world. I think he'll be able to play the Tippett role, and they'll be able to have somebody else find a bit more space.
You've got Henderson, you've got Jenkins there. They've got options, and the fact is, when the crowd gets behind Walker, he really lifts to another level. He's not a
It's all in the
confidence
mullet.
player. Exactly. he's not a confidence player though. He's good anyway. But when he gets that crowd behind him and he kicks a good goal, he lifts again.
His kicking at Amy Stadium is just brilliant from a set shot.
Yeah,
He sucks at MCG,
Yeah.
but he was just, he couldn't miss.
You got to master the wind there because you got to remember Amy Stadium's right on the beach, so you get that sea breeze coming
Amy
across
Stadium's
the wing.
away from everything.
It
Have you
is.
ever been to Amy Stadium?
I have. It's
Went over
in the
once,
middle of
and you
nowhere.
have to catch about 4 buses, get out in the middle of a desert, cross a lake, like in the canoes we were talking about, cross one of those.
That's the Adelaide supporters' excuse. But I think someone they're going to miss equally as much as Talia has mentioned earlier, Ben, is Jared Petrenko, who yanked his shoulder in the last couple of minutes. Might be partially dislocated, you don't know, but he was crying at the end, which suggests he knew what had happened because I think he's had previous shoulder issues with the other one. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think he'll pull up for next week, and he's the kind of player who's going to put pressure on Hawthorn's halfbacks, as you mentioned earlier.
They were singing the song, and he's standing there holding his arm. Just someone get that boy a sling, because he's sitting there sad. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, protect the shoulder. Anyway, I think we should move on, Marsden.
Yeah, we usually jump straight into the top 11, but pre-show we saw in the lovely Inside Football newspaper that Terry Wallace decided to rate the players of the bottom 10 teams.
This is not indicative of Inside Football. It's usually a good read. It's
Usually.
usually well
It's a
thought out. I don't know what they were
And then
doing
they got
here.
Terry Wallace, the list manager, at the list manager.
So ironic that this man's called himself the list
Look,
manager.
we can. I mean,
It's,
we're
it's
only
like Ryan Showmaker's calling him the All-Australian defender or something.
Well, no, we only did a quick browse as well of the players. He rated them A through D, and then the players that didn't play, I believe. And we picked out, I think, about 20 players that were just so wrong. I mean, the first one we saw, Dustin Fletcher as an A-grade player. Do I need to go into detail? I mean, he's a professional paddler. He can't.
Oh, that's a bit
Professional
rough.
elbower as
He's
well.
a bad Nick Maxwell, and that says something. And I'm not afraid
he's
to
not
say
a
that.
He's better than Nick Maxwell. I'm sorry.
Michael Hibbard as a D-grade player.
Hey, that's just wrong.
That's
wrong
ridiculous.
on so many levels. Michael Hibbert is going to be, if he isn't already a fantastic halfback.
He already
flanker.
is.
He already
is.
He's got
I
room
don't
to
think Terry
improve.
knows who he is. That's just guess. Give him a D as well.
Dylan Grimes, an A-grade player.
That's tough. Potential, but not yet. No.
Lee Montagna, A-grade. No,
Not for a very long
years.
time.
Finished
Not
second
for
the
years.
best and fairest,
Now,
but no.
I got a giggle out of this one. Jared Brennan, B-grade.
B-grade spaceman.
Yeah, B-grade for Gold Coast, maybe.
God.
As in B-grade reserves. Campbell Brown, B. B for
Jeez, that's
bum.
very
B-grade
generous.
sniper.
That's very generous.
B for sniper.
B.
He's still not very good at it, though.
Yeah. Liam Jarrah, B.
What?
Liam Jarrah, it was a B.
Did he play a game?
He played one game and did his ACL. Not his ACL. His Achilles, I think.
A series of ligament-related.
Ligament-related.
What was he rating the incident he had up in? Like, seriously? What?
B for
How do you-
machete.
B for not killing the bloke.
I mean, that's what I don't
It's
get.
B for Butcher, Master.
Oh, dear God.
I don't get the consistency of that because Terry on other lists has got players who haven't played enough game time, like Luke Mitchell, and God no, I'm not going to rate them, which is fair enough. And he's pulled B out for Jarrah, who played something like 65 minutes of football. That's bizarre.
Will Minson got a B.
What?
Led the league in hitouts. B-grade.
B grade? No, I don't think so. I don't think. But he's in the same category as Boyd, who is B.
That's ludicrous. It's just so stupid.
Tim Moore got given a C.
That's very unfair. How is it
He had
his
a good
fault
year.
the ball is always down there?
Ash McGrath got a B.
Oh my God.
Dyson, the spaceman Heppel, B.
No, he's not a B.
Now, Cade Simpson as an A grade player. No,
No.
he is a professional B
He's
grader.
a solid B
A
grade
professional
footballer.
B grader. Brendan
he's a very
Goddard
good
as an A grader.
No.
No, monies. And
He was in 2009. but
finally, we have Cale Morton, our best friend, with a C.
C for Kale.
How many?
He didn't play. He didn't play
Z
this
for
year.
Kale.
He didn't play this year.
Yeah, C for the
He
res-
did.
He played against
reserves.
That's just a
Ablett.
C for reserve.
He played on Gary
Reserve
Ablett.
C for trade week.
He played on Gary Ablett and conceded about 20 touches in the first quarter.
And, okay, so before we go to some sin messages, we'll get on to the top 11 for this week. And we were watching the game last night, obviously, and Taylor Walker was fantastic, but at the same time, Alex Silvani was rubbish. I mean, he was a reserves backman that was simply
He played
playing
for
with
Casey.
He-
I mean, that pretty much says it all.
And the thing is, he's not a bad footballer. He just hasn't learned how to play football under Osline.
So we've compiled the top 11 better defenders than Alex Silvani. Number 11, Zach Dawson. Now that one's actually legit. Zach Dawson was good last night, and that's kind of hilarious. So to say that you're worse than Zach Dawson is the ultimate insult. 10, Brendan Favola. He actually played fullback for a season.
Fraser
Does
Gary.
anybody remember that?
He played
I
on
read it
Fraser
in
Gary.
Dennis
for a
Pagan, you
quarter.
absolute potato.
He kicked 5 in a quarter on him.
Number 9, polystyrene offers more defensive pressure, I believe. 8, a chickpea curry. You just put a bowl of chickpea curry on him, and I think he would have kicked less goals. 7, Ryan Schoenmakers. Again, the ultimate insult at number 7. 6, Luke Livingston. Who remembers Luke Livingston?
I do.
He was
Forward
meant to be...
defender.
Hey,
Supposed to be a
not
forward.
It's supposed to be...
They drafted him.
Number 5, Matthew Watson's head. Just his head. Just his head. Not any of his body. Just his big
Easter
old noggin.
Island.
That's it. It blocks it. His head takes up the
Total
defensive
eclipse.
50. Number 4, Nathan Carroll. He's got to have the worst facial hair / hairstyle combination in history. When did he retire or get kicked out? Delisted.
2007, I think.
Yeah, well done.
Very
No, it was later than that.
No.
They held on to him later than that.
Number 3, a Korean-made condom.
Oh,
What? It's true.
I'm not going to argue that.
What are you saying, tight fit or?
Guys,
Less
it's 10
defense.
o'clock in the morning.
God. Number 2, one of our producers over here, Peter Williams. He's a better defender, I believe. He's about, let's set an image, he's probably about 177 centimetres and he could do a better job, personally, I believe. And number 1, compiled of about 250 members of the Swiss Army, offers better defence for its entire country than Alex Silvani does for the backline of Fremantle.
I think on that note, I think we should go to some sin messages. Text us on the text line your thoughts on what was better than Alex Silvani last night, or your thoughts on the game on 0427 767 767. We'll be back right after this.
Emperors are our sin-approved artist for September. Their debut album, Stay Frosty, plays host to plenty of power chords, moderate amounts of studio wizardry, brutal drumming played by a friendly giant, and lashings of male-female harmonies that have been warmly received both critically and by fans alike. Catch them on Saturday, September 15th at the Workers' Club in Fitzroy. Emperors, our September sin-approved artist.
Looking for a fun excursion?
SYN offers exciting radio tours for schools, community groups and more.
Learn about community radio and get hands-on producing your own podcast show in the SYN studios.
Are you a student? Tell your teacher about SYN. If you're a teacher, go to syn.org.au/education or email training@syn.org.au.
That's syn.org.au/education or email training@syn.org.au.
Warning. Brain juice may cause spontaneous singing.
Positively can do all the things that make us laugh and cry.
Calling tossed salads and scrambled eggs. What a wonderful kind of day.
You're on SYN.
Wow, that was well done. We should sample that and use that more often.
Yeah, I know. That's just going to be the promo for this show.
Brain juice. Saturdays from 3 to 4.
Back on Bound for Glory on SYN. Again, text us in on the text line 0427 767 767, or you can message us for free on syn.org.au. Tragic news this week with the passing of John McCarthy on an off-season trip with the Port Adelaide players, about 10 of them over in Las Vegas. Completely tragic story. It's very rare that you see an AFL player die in circumstances like this. It got separated from the group after they were out on a Saturday night and got stranded at the Flamingo Hotel on the roof. I think he tried to climb down a palm tree on his way down to get back to the main group, and he lost his grip and he fell, and unfortunately he died, which was just so saddening and depressing news for the entire AFL community. So I think on behalf of Bound for Glory team, we can send our condolences to his friends and family, teammates, the club, and everyone associated with the AFL for what is a very tragic story. Used to play for Collingwood, played about 20-odd games over 4 seasons. Was delisted at the end of last year, and Port Adelaide gave him another chance. He was a hard-working midfielder, half-forward type offensive player, good kick at goal. He had a really good season for Port Adelaide this year, really showed his potential, played 21 games, and really best game against Collingwood. Funnily enough, he had 30 disposals, was really impressive that game. Against Freo as well, he played fantastically, really showed his potential. He was a draft pick in 2007, 22 years old as well, which was just so saddening to see a life cut so short. Pete, you got a few words on him? Or?
Yep. Well, he was, I guess when he came in, he was never actually played in his position because he is an inside midfielder. So he's always, I guess, tried hard. He's not the gun that a lot of media organisations make out. Obviously, when you pass away, they you become a lot better. You sort of suddenly become a lot better player. But he worked hard, and that's what Port have said as well. That basically he trained harder than most people. He'd always work hard. He'd get into the side, and I remember he always used to play in a forward pocket, and he's not a forward pocket. He isn't particularly strong overhead. He doesn't kick a lot of goals. But he used to do his best, and he used to get dropped every second week because he wasn't a forward pocket.
That was the one thing you could guarantee from him, was that he would give 110% every single game, and he was the kind of player that you want around every club, I guess. He was the lovable, popular sort of character who loved life, lived every single minute of it, and worked hard on and off the field to do his best. So it's really depressing news, I guess.
I think the best way to describe him would be a midfield cog, in that he could play just about any role you wanted to. I mean, he had 230 disposal efforts this season, 127 disposal effort. I think that was in the comeback against North Melbourne.
He was good.
And he also had a lot of 12 disposal efforts where he played a shutdown role and did it relatively effectively. He could just about do anything. He could play inside, he could play outside, he could play as a tagger. As you mentioned, Pete, he got thrown forward, and he still kicked a few goals as well.
Yeah,
I think Pete. I think he was reaching that age where he'd learned what to do on the inside, and he learned the defensive structure of a centre contest, and he was actually learning also, and you could see him developing an opposite foot, so he was learning to be creative and also attacking. He was getting to that age where he was going to, obviously, in the next couple of years, sort of go on the offensive, not only just be on the inside.
And the interesting thing is, before he went to Port, his highest disposals was 14, and that was in his debut game. So he made 14 disposals in his debut game and then didn't pick up more than that after, because he just wasn't played in the midfield. So, I mean, most Collingwood supporters were very happy when he went to Port, not because he was anything else, but other than the fact that they finally got to see him, what he could play, rather than playing a forward pocket. Because,
I mean, to be fair to him, that was an amazing best 22 that was making prelims and grand finals and won a grand final, so it wasn't really going to get
It's
a
the
spot.
toughest midfield to break into.
And, yeah, you got to remember, when he started, he was also breaking into the forward line when you had Didak when he was actually good, Davis when he was up forward, and then later on Fazolo and McCaffer and all them that were drifting through during the premiership year and things like that. He rarely had a chance. Even Brad Dick was getting chances ahead of him, which he had so much talent, always got injured. But he was just put in a position that he could not, it didn't fancy his attributes, I guess you'd say. So
I think now we've got to move on to the media's coverage of this. This was, I think,
disgraceful.
There's no words. I think some actual organisations, you could branch them between the disgraceful and I think the ones that also respected. I think kudos need to go out to SEN and the Macquarie News Network that sort of didn't pander to that, we got the story first. I think there's two we need to mention here. Austereo, a very poor form. If this isn't proof that Triple M is irrelevant, that it's losing its audience and now it's going to this sort of naming, I don't know what is. They really dropped the ball on this one.
I don't mean to slander or anything like that, but at the moment Triple M are the sort of radio station that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And if you have to release details of somebody's death in order to get ratings and in order to get attention, then that's very below par.
And it's not just this. Last week when Sydney flew into Adelaide, what did Triple M Adelaide do? What was the stunt? They put a choir of people when the Sydney players were walking off the plane singing the Crow song. Now,
shocking.
That's shock tactics to get ratings. Now, Triple M, I'm sorry, you've dropped Osterio, you've dropped the ball on this one. Sports news first. Was it sports news first? Yeah, I totally get them confused because they're that horrendous. A rumour mill. Nothing more, nothing less. They named them. They named the player before all the family knew.
It's the worst thing you can do in the circumstances with family members still being notified and news breaking out. Because imagine finding out that a brother or a sister or your son or whoever has died over Twitter.
His brother was travelling around backpacking in Ireland, I think, and he found out like 2 hours after the incident.
He found out, I think, 4 minutes before Keith Thomas made the press conference. Had the press conference.
Which is just shocking, isn't it?
I think we've also social media. I think that it did well in this case. It regulated itself.
No, it was because it started off as it was named that John McCarthy had died, and it was all over Twitter about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then everybody rectified it by deleting certain tweets and not mentioning the player. I mean, we got to remember this all happened. I think the initial media thing, the statement from Port Adelaide came out at about 11:30, 12ish roughly. Yeah. This was all happening at about 9:30, 10 in the morning. I mean, it wasn't even confirmed that a Port Adelaide player had died, let alone the name. I mean, the name was, I think he was named at about 4 o'clock during that that interview.
The 4:30 press conference.
And there was, as you mentioned, Triple M and Sports News First. This player had died at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you can't publish content based off Twitter and rumours because that's how they get big, and it's so disrespectful.
I mean, more, it's disappointing for Osterio because they're usually pretty good at this. They have a pretty good team that sift through things, and obviously this is nothing new for Sports News First. They are a rumour mill.
It's about what we expect from them, I guess.
Pathetic organisation. If I have to sit there during the day and just go through it and see that they've named players being delisted, that clubs haven't even looked at delisting yet, and they've just whatever they hear or whatever rumour, they throw it out there.
Can I add a name to this list of people that treated the whole?
Can you critique it in a way that doesn't get us in trouble?
Yeah, I guess so.
Can you?
Yes,
try?
I can. Yes, I can.
Okay.
All right, Channel 7.
Yep.
It was confirmed that a Port Adelaide player had died. Everybody basically knew who it was at that time, but there was
Collingwood player.
Yes,
that's what they named
they named him. They didn't say everyone was being respectful and not naming the player. And Channel 7 were respectful. They were very respectful. They didn't name the player. They just said a former Port Adelaide and Collingwood player.
I mean, who else is there?
It really doesn't. I mean, even to the point of naming him as a star. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but that's seeking ratings completely there by saying an AFL star had died. He wasn't a superstar, John McCarthy. I'm not going to say this with no disrespect at all, but if you name it as a star in order to get people tuning in, I mean, I heard the word star and I think, oh, here we go, someone who's a B grade, A grade sort of player has been in an accident. It's completely
headline grabber.
That's it, and that's it.
Yeah, even that Chaser song, everyone's a top bloke after death.
Yeah. These are the same. I'm sorry. These are the same outlets that were bashing him 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they were.
For his disposal.
I think.
I mean, you can't do that sort of backflip.
I think it's even bigger in the ethics of the Herald Sun now in their advertisements. We broke it here first. Not that we broke the story right. Not that we broke the story in a manner which was ethical. Was also correct because they've had to print a lot of, we were wrong about this during the year. They've done it more than I think any other year. I was reading the other day, and you can't base your whole journalistic system of we got it. You got it right.
They broke the story in every sense of the word. They broke the story. And that's as we say with Bound for Glory News, mass media breaks it, we fix it. It's sort of what we do. I mean, we had an article ready to go for John McCarthy, but we left it until it was confirmed.
And I think that's not a plug in itself. I think we think that we ought to be the change that you see in the world. We don't want people jumping the gun like that when there's, it's a person.
It's somebody's life. That's a thing.
Well,
it's
I think something that we haven't mentioned yet is the again adding to the breaking of his name that his Wikipedia page was edited to
Facebook
suggest
page
that,
as well.
and there was a Facebook page, rest in peace, John McCarthy. When still his brother Matthew in Ireland hadn't known, they were still contacting family members. As an absolute disgrace.
Also, he was trending on Twitter as well. His name was trending on Twitter before it had been officially.
That's what this causes, all this naming and shaming.
Imagine if they got that wrong. Imagine
that's it.
They got it wrong and it was someone else that died.
They entirely lose their credibility.
Because they'd actually changed it. Some people had changed it to seriously injured. Like at one stage, there was actually a AFL player seriously injured.
Well, he wasn't confirmed dead.
That's the thing, and it's like imagine if they hadn't actually died. Imagine they come back and then they're like, well,
I saw they named Salopek. That it was Salopek. I saw
a few different
names because there were 7 of them that were.
It's not something you can start naming people.
You can't just guess when someone dies. Completely and utterly, just wrong. And I think on that note, I think we should go to some SYN messages and we'll be back with more.
Welcome all you sinners out there. Do not change your radio station because coming up next we have the amazing Ben and Vicky and their brand new show, The Proposal. They will offer you salvation. Okay, maybe not salvation, my friends, but they will offer you a damn good time. Do not go anywhere.
Attention sinners, this is your captain speaking. Welcome to Flight India Electro Night. We have a smooth ride ahead of us with very little turbulence, so just sit back and relax. Here's a quick word from your flight attendant.
Instead of being a passenger, you should be a part of our crew. If you would like to host your own show on Indie Electro Night, just follow these simple instructions. Access the SYN website at syn.org.au/get involved for more information. Thank you for flying SYN Airlines. Enjoy your flight.
Want a taste of Get Cereal?
Liz is going to make up animals and then I'm going to have to try and make mating calls for them.
I'm not making up animals. Animals exist. These mating calls may not.
Sure they do. All right, go.
All right, okay. I'm going to think of an animal. All right, I'm going to start with a pelican.
Pelican?
Yes.
All right.
Arr! That was the worst.
Get Cereal from 6 a.m. weekdays on SYN.
We're back on Bound for Glory on SYN. Now, something as shocking as the press release of John McCarthy's death was North Melbourne's performance last week and also Geelong. And we got Ash who's going to review both those teams.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a shock last week. We didn't really expect Geelong to lose, and we didn't really expect North Melbourne to lose by the margin that they lost by. So I don't think last week's performance is really indicative of what happened throughout their season. So I thought I'd go through how their season was. So following from Ethan and Matt's analysis of the bottom 8 last week, I thought we could look at the seasons of North and Geelong and we'll give them a bit of a rating. So we'll start with Geelong. So Geelong's season was pretty balanced. They had 7 wins in the first half of the season and 8 in the second. 4 of their 7 losses were to top 8 teams. They lost to Geelong. They lost to Collingwood both times that they met during the season, and they lost by considerable margins as well. They won once and lost once to both Sydney and Adelaide, and both times that they won, it was at Skilled Stadium. So obviously that home ground advantage is something that works well to their benefit. They were able to beat the current premiership favourites Hawthorn twice by 2 points, but as we've discussed in the past, we don't know whether that's more due to Hawthorn's psychological sort of thing more so than Geelong. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the Hawthorn, they can't beat Geelong. It's Geelong play a sort of pressure brand where their back six really clamps down on those outside players that use the ball well for Hawthorn, and they just freeze up. They can't beat them.
Yep. So in the end, Geelong ended up finishing with 15 wins and 7 losses. They played top 8 teams 11 times in the season and won 4 of these games.
It's a fairly tough draw. That's less than half of the league, the best half of the league, and playing them 11 times isn't really an easy run.
Well, I did an article about this, about the draw on Bound for Glory News, which is up there today. But I had a look at it, and Geelong and Hawthorn had the toughest draws by playing the top six. I looked at the top 6 teams. Top 6 teams the most times.
Well, it's fair enough. They won the flag last year, and Hawthorn made a prelim. And yeah, the draw is ridiculously unfair, and it's towards revenue and attendances. Just on Geelong, they looked susceptible when they travelled. And I think up until the middle of the year, they got smashed in every single game in contested ball. Bar Selwood, there was no one. So I think a pretty good move mid-year by Chris Scott was to throw Stevie J in the middle. He became a bit of a playmaker. He created, he dropped back when he needed to. And they had Chapman up there, playing Stevie J's around the goal role.
And it was revealed yesterday that Jimmy Bartell was playing all season with an ankle injury, so that doesn't help, obviously.
Foot fracture.
Foot fracture, there you go.
A small foot fracture. And I think that really did hurt Geelong in the end. They missed his game-breaking abilities, the fact that he can step up when required, and in big games such as the one against Sydney. I think
even last week, he was really good last week.
Yeah, he sort of has that license to do. The coach gives him that license to go do what's required when needed, whether it's to stand on the last line of defence or move forward to take that mark.
And he still tried that too, but
he just couldn't get to that next contest, and that foot was affecting him. And he was obviously getting injections before the match to quell the swelling and the sort of pain that he was probably in. Should the AFL investigate that?
I wouldn't have thought so, but I think that is it's something that the Geelong medical staff have to look at, whether it's worth giving him 4 to 6 weeks or however long it takes for it to heal on the sidelines, rather than playing him through the year with pain. It really did. He still played well.
It's something
just not to his standards.
It's something that happens so often though. Like, so many players play with injuries throughout the year because they get injections before the game. And like, even this month, there's going to be so many players that are being injected before games. Don't be surprised if, to get key players, key stars out there, that teams are giving them injections to ensure that they can have their presence on the field.
Broken bones and stuff like that are a common occurrence in football, and players will be playing 2 weeks after breaking a finger or something along those lines because they can jab them.
Yeah, don't be surprised if Guerra plays on grand final day. Yep. They'll probably be throwing him in the hyperbaric chamber to get the oxygen to the blood vessels to help repair the hamstring. Is Podsiadly done?
Not done. He'll go backwards.
No, do you think
structure-wise he was good?
Do you think it's time to give Walker, Brown, and Kirsten their chances?
One more year.
One more year.
I don't think Geelong will. The premiership windows, you can probably say it's shut. I mean, we said this back in 2010, but no, you'd think it's well and truly shut. And I think having Podsiadly, I mean, he won the goal kicking award in the VFL many times. He's a veteran forward. I think you need that sort of player around the club to help the guys like Vardy and Walker.
I think a thing that did work well for Geelong was the presence of Tom Hawkins this year. So I look a bit of a look at his stats, and this year he kicked 35 more goals than he did last year, and this was due to more opportunity, with 100 scoring shots compared to just 44 last year. So with the retirement of Mooney, he was able to stand up, and he had to stand up, and I think that he did a really good job for Geelong. We'll go on to North Melbourne now. So North Melbourne had a pretty poor start to the season, only winning 4 out of their first 10 games. And apart from Geelong, the teams they had beaten were not really considered genuine finals contenders. They had narrow losses to both Western Bulldogs and Port Adelaide, and then they got absolutely thumped by Hawthorn in round 10 by 115 points. And it was this point that many wrote them off as a chance of playing finals because their start was just so poor.
Sack Scott.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sack the
team, I think.
Team.
I think that's a good point. I think there was only Swallow and Scott Thompson playing against the other team at points during the year.
Scott Thompson had a remarkable year, didn't he?
It's Thompson and Swallow for the best and fairest. No one else doesn't even need to bother showing up. I think even Petrie, his first half of the year was pretty bad. North
Petrie
Melbourne,
the spud beater.
It's a good
six
point.
goals in 6 games against top 8 teams or something.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
doesn't.
He kicked a goal against top 8 teams.
I think against better defenders, he tries to pull them up the ground too. But no, he is beaten against quality players. You could say Bastanak, Cunnington, Zeeble, this was their year to stand up. Zeeble did it at times, but he was also suspended half the year. Cunnington, he came in at the end of the season and covered quite well when Lee Adams was just completely injured. I think Liam Anthony, during the start of the year, he got better defensive accountability, but he's still never going to have the disposal that a player in his role requires.
He was dropped, wasn't he?
He was.
And this is a player averaging about 25 disposals a game getting dropped. That is a fair indictment on his disposal.
It wasn't even his disposal. It was the fact that
his defensive
he
work.
didn't man up when it was required. I think Boyd got 44 on him.
He's a lazy footballer at times.
He's very lazy. Sometimes
when he goes, and he showed that against Geelong early in the year. When he goes, he's very good, but for the majority of the time, he's a lazy footballer.
I think it's an indictment on the club that Swallow, Wells, Harvey, and probably Anthony are the only 4 players at this point in time in their North's development that can run out a whole game playing a midfield role. Zeeble, Cunnington, Bastanak, they need a lift next year. Scott is in trouble if North don't win a final next year.
If we were rating the last 10 rounds of the season, you'd give North Melbourne a 10 out of 10. They were fantastic in the second half. I mean, they looked near unbeatable, especially at Etihad. That one loss against Fremantle was obviously a poor
I'd probably
mark.
give them a 9 just for that loss.
Yeah, probably. But those last 10 rounds, they pulled themselves out of the depths. But with that said, the season's longer than 10 rounds.
Yeah, they finished with 10 out of the last 12 games of the second half of the season. So they beat some genuine contenders such as Adelaide, Collingwood. They lost to West Coast by only 2 points. Like you said about Etihad worked really well for them. They had 10 wins and 4 losses at Etihad because the ground suits them. They know the ground. It suits their game plan. So
Sunday Twilight.
Yeah, beat me to it. Sunday Twilight. I called it. I told you people. Sunday Twilight. North do not lose.
Well, they haven't lost.
They do not lose.
This year, have they?
They have against West Coast in Perth.
That
wasn't
a
Saturday game.
It was. It was 4:40.
Yeah, it wasn't at Etihad. Sunday Twilight's at Etihad.
Sorry, I didn't hear
You
that.
fool.
It was a Saturday game, wasn't it?
No, it was the
No,
first one.
the second one was a Saturday game.
The second one was a Saturday game down in Launceston. Yeah, Scott's got to figure out a more defensive mindset for that midfield at times because they're just going to get smashed against quality opposition.
Well, they got fanned out in the elimination final against West Coast defensively.
North were done after the Collingwood game. They're making up all that ground. They were shot. They've got to go back, get the full tank, and obviously work on that, and they should be okay going forward.
Well, they're a young team, and their fitness would come, you'd think.
Yeah, it's that age group. Once you hit 23, 24, and the majority get that, over 75, 80 games, they'll be okay. And I think on that note, quickly, ratings. Geelong?
Oh, 7.
Out of 10.
I'd say 7.
I'd probably give them about 6.5, 7, yeah.
I'd go 7.
7.
7.5. I think they've got some quality
North?
kids there. 7.
Yeah, it's 7.
I'll give them the same.
And the second half of the season was great, but the first half was rubbish.
6.5.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So, as Ben said, if the kids step up next year, they'll be a genuine threat to finish in the maybe top 8. Sorry, top 4, and then top 8.
Big call, top 4.
Yeah, top 4.
Scotty,
if they can step up, as you
they
said,
have
like
to.
with Lean Anthony, if they can sort of take his role. And
Those kids there, they've
Potential's
got
there.
Scott's career right in his hands because if he doesn't win a final next year, he's in big trouble.
Cool.
It is. No, because 4 years is enough. You've got to win a final within 4 years. I'm sorry. There's
Terry Wallace.
There's patience. There's patience.
You've got to make a final if you're Terry Wallace.
There's patience, but then you've also got to deliver results after a certain amount of time. On that note, I think there's some bigger things. Part 1 of our massive Brownlow preview.
Yep.
We'll just jump straight into
It's already Brownlow time, which is fantastic. It's one of the best nights of the year, if not the best night of the year. We have 2 favourites that have emerged. Everyone's been talking about them, Trent Cotchin and Gary Ablett. They're the outright favourites. So we'll start with Trent Cotchin. This year he finished 8th in total disposal count, 606 he finished on. He averages 27.5, which is 9th best in the competition, at a efficiency rate of 66%. He also kicked 21 goals as well, so he proved that he could push forward and do that all-round midfielder where he could go in, get at the in and under ball, and also get the ball on the outside and finish running inside 50. He's been around the Brownlow mark all year, but in the last few rounds of the season, he really stepped up his push for the Brownlow, and I think he might have even emerged as favourite since then for the Brownlow over Gary Ablett. As Gary Ablett was favourite for most of the year, but a strong run at the end of the season could see Cochin win it in the last few rounds, I think. Now on to Gary Ablett. He's also the tied favourite with Cochin at the moment. Finished second for disposals with 676. Averaged 33.8 disposals, tick under 34, which is just massive. That's huge. At a efficiency rate of 69%, which is quite good, especially for a guy who gets a lot of clearances as well that usually go to 50-50 contests. Also kicked 26 goals, again proving that he could play that role where you run inside 50 and kick goals. Yeah, second most disposal count in the competition behind Matthew Boyd. His ability to lead an entire team from the midfield, as well as averaging over a goal a game, could see him take home his second Brownlow medal. As I mentioned just before, he'll probably lead it at around 18 mark, 19 mark. It all depends on Cochin's run home, I believe. And the outside favourite at the moment is Jobe Watson. He was favourite all year. Until about round 16 and round 12 he's probably a shoo-in to be leading. The first half of the season of Essendon's was fantastic. The first half of the season of Jobe Watson's was fantastic. He finished sixth in the total disposal count, 638 disposals at an average of 29 per game and a disposal efficiency of 69%, as well as 20 goals to his name. But yeah, the poor second half to Essendon could probably see him cost it. As I mentioned, he will be leading for a lot of it, but I think the run home of Cochin and Ablett, who were their teams played relatively the same all throughout the year, and they played relatively the same all throughout the year. So I think they'll both overtake Jobe Watson. Now, having a look at
mind you, Matt, you could see a game like Adelaide versus Essendon where he probably could get 2 votes, 1 vote, depending on. Well, I think Dangerfield that game was brilliant, but
that's
close
one
losses.
game though.
I think, there's not a lot of close losses for Essendon in the second half of the year, and I think that's going to do him in.
But the thing is, Watson was constantly their best player. Just he could still snaffle.
It was Stanton and Watson early in the season, and it was kind of if the umpires sway towards Watson as opposed to Stanton, I think Watson will run out.
Well, he's a proven polar.
Yeah, he is.
Now, I had a look at the stats when I was doing this, and I didn't even consider him at all, but I had a look at Dane Beams, and I don't think he'll win it because of Dane Swan's influence as far as voting goes, and he'll probably get a lot of votes himself. But he finished third in the total disposal count with 656, average just a tick below 30, 29.8, and a whopping disposal efficiency of 74%, which is huge.
Pretty remarkable.
That's huge,
Especially
that's it. And 27 goals. So he'll get votes stolen from Dane Swan, but his total number of disposals and his disposal efficiency are not to be ignored. I mean, that's just incredible for that sort of season.
The thing is, if you're going to go by stats, Matthew Boyd is a Brownlow medalist.
Yeah, that's true.
You see games like...
But his efficiency is so down, Boyd.
Games like the one against Hawthorn where, again, Dane Swan as well racked up 49 disposals. Beams had 34 and 4 goals. They're probably not going to get votes for that, and if they do, it's going to be 1, because players like Jordan Lewis and Sam Mitchell had great games and they were more effective. That's why I think Trent Cochin is probably the better, I think the favourite at the moment, because his disposals aren't effective statistically as in terms of standing out from the rest of the competition, but it's just the way he does it, the way he evades, the way
he looks silky. He looks like an Ablett,
looks
a young
silky,
Ablett.
and he looks classy, and I think that's where he has a big gap over the rest of the players, I think.
The only way Trent Cochin's to lose, the only way is if the first 10 rounds, Deledio and Marich were fantastic in a lot of Richmond's games. And Tuck. If they don't steal those votes, it's Trent Cochin's Brownlow.
Just finally on Dane Beams, this is the sort of thing that I saw and I was like, hang on, he could possibly be a chance here. Out of Cochin, Ablett and Watson and himself, he's second in both total disposals and disposal average per game, and first in disposal efficiency and total goals.
But the thing is, you also need to mention Scott Pendlebury as well, who had a ripper.
That's true. I think players will steal votes, but I think he'll consistently get 1 and 2, and when you get 1 and 2 for 20 odd games, it does add up.
You could very potentially see Pendlebury, Swan, and Beams all around 20 votes.
As far as I think he's something like the 8th favourite to win it, or tied 8th favourite, or maybe even 10th favourite. I can't remember off the top of my head, but as far as Smokies go, I think he's right up there.
I think with Cochin as well, he's kind of like Murphy last season. It was his breakout season. And in many of those games where he's best on ground, he'd get the 1 or the 2 and Judd would get the 3 because he's a senior player. I think it might go against Cochin like that this year. I reckon they might opt towards Dilidio and Tuck, even though they're not really proven pollers. But that's sort of what could go against him. If he gets the votes, Cochin, then you win.
And you run a Brownlow blog?
Yeah, I do.
Dan?
Yes, I do.
It is called Brownlow Talk.
Brownlow Talk, yes.
So you've been watching this. You follow this all throughout the year. Who do you think will win it? And in one line, who do you think will win it and why?
I say Watson, because he's a proven poll. Last year he got 11 votes in the first 8 rounds before he got injured. But yeah, I'd say Watson.
Big call, because a lot of people have said Cochin, but again, I think you're right. It will work against him that the first 10 rounds when Richmond had some good wins against Hawthorn and Sydney, and then in some close losses against West Coast and Geelong, there were players like Tuck, Deledio, and even Marriage. I think Marriage will get some 2 or 3s in some of those games.
Yeah. I think we're going to go into that next week. You won't want to miss that. We're going to go in depth with the Brownlow. I mean, it will only be 2 days away when we have our next show next Saturday, so don't miss that. With that said, move on to previews or preview for the game tonight.
An absolute cracker at the MCG. The winner of West Coast and Collingwood goes to play the Swans next Friday night at ANZ. There are 3 players I want to mention right off the top of the bat. That's Nick Nat, Gaff and Shuey. They played 3 finals last year. 3 of them played their first finals last season. Now, it's their 5th final tonight. They have to perform. They've played shocking away from Subi, those 3 this year, when they've had to travel, and it's time now. Not later, they're still young, but by the time you get to your 5th final, you need to adapt.
I'll be keeping my eye solely fixed on Nick Nat, because he needs to have a big game, as you mentioned. He needs to have a big game. If he has anything below 15, 16 disposals and has a rubbish hit-out count and doesn't kick any goals, he's going to get flamed next week. I'm calling it right now.
Because we know that Darren Jolly can change the game as much as Dean Cox and Nick Nat can. He's a fantastic ruckman, still at the age of 30. He can account for both of those 2.
I think it's the first time in a while that 2 teams have met, and I think they're that good on paper, and they've shown at times that they're that good, that they're too good to be eliminated in the second week of the finals. Both of them, you could easily say, should make a prelim.
I think looking at the teams, Collingwood, despite the result last time they played, and I think it was 58 points at the end of that game, despite that result, I think out of all the teams, Collingwood and West Coast match up fantastically well. I mean, Collingwood's defence, it has the first half of the year, it didn't exist because they were all on the injury list, but now that they've got the players back, I mean, Tarrant was fantastic last week, trying to shut down Buddy, and he basically did. Buddy got the cheapy goals at the end of the game. Goldsack has been relatively good as well.
Where does Goldsack play tonight? Forward or back?
Defence.
Third
He's
man
got
to play.
He's got to zone off one of the talls, because West Coast are going to lead them wide. They're not going to all lead to the same place. They didn't do it last week. I don't think they've done it all year. They're going to lead wide. They're going to make sure that there's no chance that a second Collingwood player can come over the top, because they're going to be completely outsized.
Comparing West Coast's forward line to Hawthorn, I think Collingwood will have a lot of experience from last week. I mean, they have the big guy in Franklin. You've got Kennedy. I mean, you've got the rough-haired Darling, Hill, even Gunston or someone along those lines. Like there's so many goal scorers, and you need to have so many defenders to shut them all down, and that's what they didn't do last week. And I think they'll be able to get a lot of experience out of that.
Collingwood need a tag tonight. There's no... Yeah. Over the season, they've had occasionally Sharad Wellingham and Jared Blair play run-with roles. And I think tonight...
Very sporadically.
I think tonight, Dale Thomas has had hardly any offensive influence. He has to tag tonight.
But
Priddis.
they
Send
need
him straight to Priddis.
But they need the right players to tag. I mean, last week we had all bar Pendlebury had below 30 disposals, and they didn't have any influence.
Or you could almost see Dale Thomas go to someone like Andrew Wembley, who played fantastically last week.
Or Daniel Kerr, I reckon he's a...
I think aerobically Dale Thomas is a good player, and I think...
No, he won't... I think aerobically he can play, and you're right, he's very good aerobically, and that's why he should stick to a Priddis or an Embley. I think it's Wellingham's night to go to Kerr, because Wellingham can go in when it's close and it's tight, and he has to stick with Kerr. Not necessarily run around the ground with him, but when it's a contest and he looks to get the clearance, he's got to put his body body on the line to stop that.
Quick Cloak discussion. I think if Cloak can kick 6 goals again, because I believe Collingwood's defensive effort will be upped after last week. If he can kick 6 goals again, Collingwood will win, and I'm calling that.
Yeah, they should. They should. If they don't, Dawes again, he has to somehow.
Dawes wasn't that bad last week.
He was
great.
much better.
I think it was great.
But he's got to impose
professional
himself
decoy.
More.
Professional
decoy. But it's final. Now we're moving closer to the end game. He's got to start imposing himself. Contested marks win finals.
He's
probably going to play on Darren Glass as well.
Yeah, he has to completely neutralise what Glass does, and when Glass
if the weather holds off, I think this will be a shootout. I mean, if you look at both forward lines, you think the forward lines will get the best of each defence, and that's where the game will be won in the defence. If even for a quarter or a half, if they can get on top of the forwards, then I think that'll decide the game.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I just think West Coast on the forward aspect, they're just too tall. I think Collingwood are going to struggle to get back and cover. If they can break even in the midfield, they should be okay. But I just think West Coast.
How much?
5 goals. I think they can open them up. Considering Collingwood haven't gone on the defence a lot, they haven't put taggers. If they don't put on the stoppers tonight, it could get ugly for Collingwood.
Look, I've been saying all week West Coast, West Coast, West Coast, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to feel Collingwood. I just have a feeling about Collingwood by under 10 points.
I've been on the West Coast bandwagon pretty much all year, so I'm definitely going to go West Coast.
I think West Coast are a better team, but Collingwood are better at the G, so I think same margin as last time, 3 points.
Ooh. I say West Coast. I reckon they're going to win in the middle. If Collingwood play accountable footy, then they'll win, but I'd say West Coast.
I think quickly before we go to the plugs, I think Harry O'Brien needs a big game.
And regardless, Nathan Buckley's got a pass mark this year. Those injuries, only everyone bar Travis Cloak didn't play every game. Travis Cloak was the only player to play every game this year. So injuries, that's a pass mark. Very well done by Buckley.
Definitely. Plugs.
Bound for Glory News.
Bound for Glory News. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Keep mass media honest.
Beautiful.
Then we've got Sarge Supercoach on Twitter.
And his website.
His website's coming up. It's going to be all ready. Actually, before 2013, it's all going to be put together. Anything else? Follow us on Twitter.
Bound for Glory FM.
I can't remember the links. What are they?
Bound for Glory FM and Bound for Glory News.
On that note, fantastic show. We're looking forward to tonight. We're looking forward to the rest of the finals. Join us next week, same time. Goodbye.
Oppan Gangnam Style.